Welcome to the headquarters of the Republican Party of Bexar County, John.
Oh,
We're
so
really
glad to be here.
excited to have you here and very pleased that you're running for District 118 State Representative. Why don't you start off with letting us know what your goal is to be the state representative in Austin?
All right. Well, I'll tell you what, I'll back up just a little bit. I did run for state representative in 2016 on a special election, and I won that race. I didn't win the general, so I was totally out of politics. And I said, enough's enough, I'm done. I'll just help, the other ways. And I became precinct chair, and I was getting involved in things like that. But then this seat came up, and after a lot of people pushing and everything looking right and some funding came across, I decided I'm going to run again. And it's for the same reasons. I live my whole life in District 118. I live in South Bexar County. And one of the things that really, really bothers me, Jeff, is that we have failing school districts on our south side. And for so long, we've had the same representation, kind of with the same results. And I sit around a lot talking at coffee tables, dinner tables, complaining, this is what I would do and this is what should be done. But I decided to run. Education was a big one. Property taxes are a big one. I have 3 adoptive children. I saw a lot of things that we could do better there. And I decided to throw my hat in the ring. And as you know, this is a difficult race. I made history. I'm the first and only Republican to ever win this seat. So even wanting to run, you have to be geared up for it because it's going to be a battle. The winning a special is one thing, but winning the general is a whole different thing.
Are you finding it a battle out there with your opponent?
My opponent's running. I've met him before. I'm very cordial with him. One thing I won't do is go negative or do anything negative. He hasn't been negative back. I'll give him that credit. But I just see a lot of momentum our way. A lot of people are saying, especially a lot of the Hispanic families who traditionally vote Democrat are now saying, no, we're going to vote John Lujan because, he's conservative. He cares about God, family, country. Those things are really big for me. And then preparing the future for our children. That's what we got. Not living in today's moment, doing the things that we feel are right today. We got to be thinking about the future for our children and our country. And that's resonating well in our community. So
Let's step back a little bit here for a second. You mentioned the failing school system out there, and that intrigues me to understand because you're saying it's been that way for decades now and they keep doing the same thing. What is it that you would change in what's being done in the school district to bring it up from a failing grade?
One of the first things, there are certain hiring practices and things that are going on within the school district that we can tweak that I really believe some of our southern school districts are taking advantage of sometimes. They can go into a contract with the teacher, and if the teacher decides to leave right before school starts to go somewhere, they don't get penalized. Things like that. It puts our districts at a little bit disadvantage on the south side. That's one thing. The next thing is proper funding to make sure now that I see more important is the administrative pieces for grant writers and those people that are looking for those extra dollars to bring to our district, because it's compounded when you don't have that much money anyway, but yet there's grants and monies allotted that if you put in for it, but these people are being overworked, they don't get to put in it like some of the bigger school districts. So I'm seeing that firsthand. And so I've got ideas and things that we're going to be proposing to make that difference. I think if we tweak a lot of little things and with proper funding and doing our school districts right, man, I think we can make some big changes for our districts.
How does that play into the concept that's evolving here in Texas about school choice?
Well, school choice is I'm a big public ed guy. However, with that being said, I told you I had 3 adoptive boys. 2 of the boys I adopted when they were 14 and 12. And when I adopted them, I didn't know what baggage they had. They're not boys that I knew. We had worked with them with CASA. Their adoption had fallen through where they were going to be adopted. CPS told us the boys were going to be separated and they would be put in homes. Nobody would adopt them because they were too old. And they said they're probably just going to be released at 18. So I said, my wife and I stepped in and said, let's adopt the boys. And we did. And I haven't regretted. Today they're 22 and 20. They're successful. They're doing very well. But at that time when I adopted them, my school district got taken over by TEA, and it was a failing school. I didn't want to put my children in a failing school. I didn't know their background. How am I going to raise them? I'm a yes sir, no sir dad. I'm real strict on my boys. Their grades got to be good. But these boys, I didn't raise them up to this point. And then you want me to put them in a failing school where they're probably going to start hanging around with the wrong people and they didn't have good disciplinary things. What kind of children would I have? And I remember my wife told me there's this school, and it was a charter school. It was Jubilee. And we went over there, and we went over there, and I looked at the school. We walked through. I said, I love this school. I said, man, they had uniforms. Everything was really good. And I said, but I don't know if I can afford this. And then I find out, I didn't know anything about charter schools at the time. Then I found out, no, that's part of the school system. Just to have that choice, that I didn't have to put my kids somewhere they could fail, but I needed to guarantee success. Now, my boys, as they grew older, the one that was 12 when I adopted him, by the time he was like 15, 16, he was saying, Dad, I want to play football with a high school team. He loved football. Then we made a conscious decision to put him back in the public schools, but that was my choice. And my boys were already part of our family. My mom and dad were their grandparents. My brothers and sisters were their aunts and uncles. And we had those family really tight bonds so that I could ensure success in their growth was there and developed. So now I felt safer putting them in that school. And also the school had already began to advance and got out of, where they were at, and they were now considered a passing school. And today they're even doing better. But it was the choice that I had to take my children. But I worry, Jeff, about the poor kids the ones that don't have two parents. It's being raised by a grandmother that doesn't speak much English. Those are the kids that my heart breaks for them, because we need a strong school district, because you don't get those years back. You can't put a pause on a child's life. Like, okay, you're going to be 13 for 3 years until we get the school district. No, they're going to age, and if they lose that year of school, it's gone. They don't get it back.
You're right. Now on to another big issue, the border and the problems with illegal aliens. What are 3 actions that you would suggest being done to solve the problem, and how would they be implemented?
Man, that's a good one, Jeff. One of the things that I got when I first was elected, I heard a lot of Republican backlash against the governor too, as well as the Democrats, even Republicans saying, Governor Abbott's spending too much money at the border, this Operation Lone Star. And then I heard some people praising the governor for stepping up and doing the right things. And I had mixed emotions on that, because what scares me is that when people come across the border illegally, they say they go to San Antonio and Houston first before they go to the other cities, the sex trafficking, the drugs, and things like that. And when you talk about San Antonio, you're talking about my district, 118, usually South and East Bexar County. So when I looked into that, I went on a trip to the border, and it was given to all the senators and representatives that wanted to go. I was the only one that went. The other ones sent their aides. It was like 30 people there, but I was the only state rep there. And I took full advantage. I met with ranchers. I met with DPS. I met with Border Patrol. I rode on the river. I saw tactics that the cartel is using. I saw grown police officers, sheriff's deputies presenting to us. And one in particular was very bold. He's a big guy, Mexican guy, and he was just talking real rough and tough and how they do this and they do that. And he's saying everything. And then when somebody asked him, have you seen any atrocities? He put his head down, he started crying, and he was trying to regroup himself, and he goes, I have 4 daughters. I didn't even know what he was talking about. I said, man, but what he did, he says, I had 4 daughters, and he looks up and he goes, and we got a lady the other day, a young woman the other day, 18, 19 years old, and she had been brutally raped, and she was crying and stuff, and of course she's crying about that experience, but she also said her friend was a deaf mute, same age. And she goes, then when they were both being raped, she heard a gunshot because her deaf mute friend was just screaming and crying and screaming. She lost it mentally. And she said then she didn't hear her cry anymore. She's telling this to the deputy, and he said that he went back and he found a shallow grave and they found her body. And what really bothers me, Jeff, is I tell these stories to people and the experiences that I got when I went down the border, and everybody will nod their head like, yeah, there's atrocities, but we do nothing about it. That's what bothers me the most. That to me is touching. Here we know things are happening. So when I went down there and I was just questioning too, what about Governor Abbott? Overwhelming support in the Valley for Governor Abbott. The ranchers, the business. So I didn't realize because this is what I learned when I was down there, that what they do is they'll send 200 people across the border. And let's do it in the middle of the night or in the day. They send the people across the border. All of a sudden, all these border patrol agents have to come over here and process paperwork because we can't send them back. So you got to get the ones that need to go to the hospital, get the ones that need counselors, and you got to do all the process paperwork. And if you got hundreds of people there, it takes a lot of border patrol agents to coordinate and do all of this. And then they have drones. I saw in the air, I said, man, we have drones. They said, no, those are cartel drones. So the cartel will say, okay, there goes all those all those border patrol, we can cross here. Now they've crossed 20 men across.
Now, what do we do about this? I mean, should we be shooting down these drones?
Well,
I mean, why do we just let them fly freely?
When Trump was president, they said they have the technology to bring them down. But if they're on their side, we've been ordered not to mess with them, to leave them alone. Crazy.
So what can we do?
Well, I think, I had mixed emotions on Governor Abbott, but when I went down there and I saw what I saw, I heard the atrocities that I heard. One of the things, and I want to share because I know a lot of viewers will think like this, that here, because I hear this a lot in San Antonio. No, there's always been problems with immigration. Our whole time. And you know what? You talk to the ranchers, they said, one rancher told me, he goes, we always had immigrants coming over illegally. He goes, we'd leave food out for them. We'd leave water out for them. And then he cracked me up. He goes,
I remember those days.
Yeah, and he said, Jose, raise your hand. And some guy raised his hand. He goes, he's a U.S. citizen now. He goes, he came over illegally on my property. We became friends. We got him his paperwork. He's one of my hired men now. He's a good man. These are people that he says, the people coming across, he goes, they'll send families, and all of a sudden you get a group of 20, 25 people from other countries, from who knows where, doing who knows what. And he goes, those people come. When you got drugs coming across, every rancher is in fear.
What are we going to do about all this?
Well, the thing that Governor Abbott has done is he's done Operation Lone Star. I want to meet we have a committee out there, and I haven't met with that committee or seen any of their reports, but I want to find out what are the steps we need. How much fun? It's costing us a lot of money, Jeff, from our Texas money that can be used for other things, but it scares me if we don't use it to protect our border, man. The federal government's not doing it. So as a state legislature, I want to see and work with my colleagues to put something together to put pressure on the federal government. You've got to do something. I'm hoping these elections sends us a loud and clear message to everybody that something's got to be done. We can't stay this course.
No, we can't. No, we can't. You're right, and that's why I keep sort of pressing, like, what is it that we want to do? But let's just shift over to another easy question. What's right and what's wrong about our energy policy, energy program in Texas?
I look at it as a tiered approach. Number one, our oil and gas, we know that's going to carry us, all from now to even into the future. We do have electric and all the other type of things. What I don't like is they say, if you're oil and gas, then you're against this. And if you're for this, you're against that. And I think we need a combination of all those things because you're right. Our population is growing. Our energy needs are getting heavier. We're getting, if you want to be building electric vehicles, man, you're going to need some oil and gas stuff to produce the electricity to augment the other sources. So it's an all thing. I hate when somebody says, well, I'm electric, so we don't like oil and gas, or I'm solid oil and gas and we hate electric. We have to be smart on how we do this. And that's the thing that really scares me about this budget. We have a surplus of budget. And I'm not saying we throw everything into oil and gas and then forget the rest, or everything into our EV solutions and then nothing over here. We've got to be smart so that we can maintain this, because I think the renewables and battery stuff is going to be the future when the technology gets better. And so how do we sustain the way we are until we do get that breakthrough, and then we can be able to shift. But for people to just jump on one side or the other, that's what that hurts everything, and it makes it so political, and we've got to stop that. But I will tell you this, Jeff, I have been studying some of the nuclear energy and some of the plants and the cost, and you're right, with some of the new technology we had to even provide stronger protections for the communities, that's a viable option. My thing is, it's already such a battle between oil and gas and renewables, and we throw this option, which is, I think we got to do what's right for our community. So it's something that we'll definitely be looking into.
Do you think that those elections in 2020 were conducted based and followed our constitutional principles?
I'm gonna answer that question like this, Jeff. I am a very strong supporter of good election policies. I am totally I guard my vote so carefully that I don't want my vote manipulated. I mean, people have died, we've had wars, our country has been formed for us to have this right to vote. And for us not to put safeguards around it really, really bothers me. For us to take it, if we provide a platform for people to cheat that can cheat, they will cheat. I'm a retired San Antonio firefighter. And when I was in the San Antonio Fire Department, I worked on the legislative committee. And I saw things that I didn't like that were just downright wrong. And so when people say there is no cheating, I'm telling you there is. And every time we cheat, that really bothers me. That's an American citizen's vote that you just cheated them out of. Whether you took away their vote or added to the other side of it, you've cheated that. It's like, to me, I equate it to like totally a disgrace on our veterans, and that bothers me a lot. We must safeguard our right to vote. At that point, then you could take all the elections at face value, like, yes, okay, so-and-so won, so-and-so didn't win. But we make it so political. Oh, okay, Trump says that he didn't really lose, and he's got all his followers, but he lost. We'll make a big deal of that, but yet the governor over there, she's a Democrat, she still to this day hasn't claimed a loss on her governorship, but that one's, we get a pass. See, then it becomes political, right? And I don't like that. That's why we should do everything we can to protect our right to vote. And just because we have an ID or put these little things in place, you got to show your ID at the time, and here's the ones. We're not making it hard for people to vote. We're ensuring and protecting the right to vote. That's the way I look at it.
I do too, and I agree with you. Now, what are the critical issues in your district there that you see?
Well, I think that getting the awareness out to the constituents, and I want to thank you for having me here on this platform right now to be able to speak, and I can push people and say, hey, if you want to know about me, this is who I am. And then so that the voters can decide why people are running, who's best qualified to run, why are you running, why should I choose you over this other person? Mm-hmm. Because when you have two people running, both of them feel like they're the right one, right? They both going to have their opinions, but we got to let the voters know who we are and what we're about. The next thing is just one of the things that I want to do, and I will do it after session, and I'm going to put a whole team of this, and this, I promise, I think that through the churches should be informing every one of their members that at this church, here is our U.S. representative, here's our U.S. senator, here's our state senator, here's our state representative, here's our school board members with phone numbers and emails, and so that we can pray for them and we can send them words of encouragement. And then once we hear something we don't like, we can email them all and talk to them. Can you imagine if all the churches did that today, and you just put that in the church bulletin, and here is your political, and not saying who's who or what side or vote this way or vote that way, just letting them know, because our representatives need to hear from us to know which way that we, to make sure that we stand firmly on the decisions that we make. I've only been elected and I've only been in office right about a year now. And I'm here to tell you right now that I see a lot of people that have been career politicians that will make votes in the quiet, in the darkness, and hope nobody looks at it. But how much stronger they would stand knowing that the constituents were concerned, cared, and backed them up. And so educating through the churches is real important. Social media, getting the word out, and we're working really hard in my campaign. That's like our focus, is to get the voters to know who's running, what we're about, and what we're hoping to accomplish.
Okay, so let's take a minute here and give you a chance to tell the voters what they can do to help you get elected. Not just those that are in your district, but voters throughout Bexar County.
Well, and I thank you for that. One of the things that I will say, and I would love to share with the ones listening right now. First of all, I want to give a shout out to the Republican women. There's Republican women clubs all over Texas that have donated to my campaign. I'm overjoyed when I get a letter from a Republican women's club. Here's $100, here's $250, here's $1,000. I don't care what they give me. I'm just blessed. I had one that said they actually adopted me. And so they were from Kerrville. It was Kerr County Republican women. So I went down there and I got to speak at their big group. And there was a bunch of people that none of them are in my district. None of them can vote for me. Some people said you shouldn't go down there because you got to stay in your district. Man, I was so blessed by them. I went over there and they gave me opportunity to talk, and I told them I have 3 adoptive boys. I have never been adopted, and now I have been, so that made me feel pretty good. So I was excited about that. But every time I would get help from the Republican women, and I don't know what word went out or how it went out, but it went out and they've responded. So I'm blessed with that. The people in my district, man, call for a yard site. Go to votelujan.com. You can go there. You can sign up to get things of where I'm going to be, what I'm going to do. I'm super active in our district. You can go to my Facebook page. You can look up John Lujan. I take care of my own Facebook page. My John Lujan for state rep, I have my team do that, but I take care of my personal one. Sometimes I'm behind. I'll put things a week late or something, but I try to stay on top of that. But for the most part, just being involved like that, if you need a yard sign, if you want to make phone calls, even if there's family gatherings, when somebody has a big party or gathering and they call me and I'm open, I run over there and get to meet everybody. And I believe that's the only way we're going to get the word across. What I also want to inform everybody is that I'm not running to increase the Republican Party. That's not my goal. My goal is to serve, and I think that's what I do best is to be able to bring the network together. I'm really good at that, bringing folks together, really listening, and then getting things accomplished for the good of our community.
Well, thank you very much for coming in today, John.
Yes, sir.
We
yes,
really
sir.
appreciate you, and we certainly wish you the best of luck. As you know, we're all in favor of you getting elected.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much for this time. I appreciate it.
You're very welcome.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.